all together. Now, because this is going to go back into the oven when it goes on top of the sweet potato, we don't want the vegetables to be too soft because it's going to get additional cooking in the oven. Of course, there's no additional salt or seasoning in this because of the saltfish. So before it gets too soft, I'm going to add my saltfish in here. Stir this around. And this is going to happen really quickly. So you just have to stay right here, pay attention to everything. So I have some green peas. This is the part of where the dish gets really exciting, where you get to add any amount or style of veggies that you like. There's no rule. So we have some green peas, we have some sweet corn. There we go. And this really takes just about 5 minutes. It's smelling so good already. Right, and last, olives. Olives last because there's no need to cook olives. And this is actually done. So we're going to switch this off. Here, now I'm going to cover this. Set this aside. And then I'm going to get my sweet potatoes into my ramekins right here. So I like to bake my casseroles individually. You can make a whole casserole if you want to, but I like to give that special attention to each person. So with a little cooking spray, I spray them up. Keep them on a tray so it's easy to balance in the oven. And I fill these single portions into the ramekins. Like so. This is gonna bake up and be really soft and nice inside. The cheese is gonna melt and it's going to be really good. And this is just 1 serving per person this size. It's a good amount, healthy portion. There we go. To this. So I put this on top. And you can really pack it on there. You could have even put a little less potato if you wanted more of a saltfish type of thing. It's looking really good already. There you go. And all of the vegetables are still really firm. So when it gets into the oven and it bakes up, it's going to be cooked just right. There we go. I always like the combination of salt and sweet. Even in snacks, I do like cheese sticks and chocolate. So I like that sweet and salty combination. And that scotch bonnet pepper is going to give a nice kick at the end of this dish. So this is our last one. It's looking gorgeous already. Here we go. Now this part is really important. We're going to have to do some little foil covers because when it's in the oven, you don't want a crusty top. Like typically when you make pies and stuff and you put cheese on top, you kind of want it to melt and become all crusty. You don't want that in this case because I don't think crusty saltfish is anything. So I'm going to just have some little foil covers. 3, 4. So I'm going to preheat my oven 350 degrees. When it comes up to temperature, I'm going to pop these in the oven for 20 minutes. Take them out, and that would be the dish. This is a really cool, interesting, and easy way to serve up a quick dinner. It can also be like a leftover transformation if you liked. If you had bulgur left over from breakfast, this would be a really nice way to serve it as dinner. So my casseroles are all set up, ready for the oven. 350 degrees for 20 to 25 minutes, depending on your oven. So I'm gonna get that sorted out. The awesomeness that is this saltfish bulgur and sweet potato casserole is out of the oven. So it is at this point in time, you don't want to blink because you might miss the unveiling of it. So, oh, I'm excited already. It's so good and it smells amazing. So we have that sweet potato at the bottom, a little bit of cheese, butter, garlic. We have all this saltfish and vegetables on the top that we sauteed and all the aromatic stuff. Bake them in individual ramekins, so it's one per person. And like I said before, it's like a baked pilau. So I'm gonna do it from this side so you get to see. So as I go in, I get to scoop a little bit of everything. And I guess this also is important so that it doesn't fall out. Perfect. There we go. A little bit of everything in there. Absolutely delicious. The sweet from the sweet potato goes really well with that little salt from the saltfish. That Scotch bonnet pepper gave us a little kick. This is really just an ideal, simple dinner idea. You'd love it if you tried it. So make sure and try it. So just a little recap. Earlier today we had our traditional saltfish and cornmeal dumplings. Came out really well. We put the okras in there to give it that extra body, that extra kick on this side. Flavor on point. This one has to be my favorite saltfish dish. It's really good. Be sure to try this as soon as you have a chance. So I hope that you enjoyed watching as much as I enjoyed cooking. If you need any more information on the dishes that we did today, check out below the screen. You can follow us on Instagram at SpiceTC5 or on Facebook. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Remember, food is essential to life, so please make it good. I am Aline, your food designer, and this was Spice Island in the Pot.
Spice Island in the Pot is brought to you by Stumpy's Emporium and the Penny Savers Supermarket.
Seasons, greetings, and welcome from Spice Island in the Pot. I am Aline, your food designer. Christmas morning, the breakfast is a worldwide tradition, but for me, a Caribbean Christmas morning breakfast is just about the best. In my family, we keep it simple, but let me tell you, the love and togetherness make a simple spread of only 4 items feel like a 10-foot table full of food. Here's how we do it. We start with a good old pork ham with a sauce, only 4 ingredients in this sauce. Then we make some fresh coconut bread, and then we wrap that all together with some hot cocoa tea or hot chocolate. Some people know it as hot chocolate. Now, before we get into any cooking, let's take a trip to the Tobago Cocoa Estate to get our chocolate. We're in the middle of the Tobago Cocoa Estate. This is the beginning. So this is where it starts with the fruit, this beautiful color. I had the privilege of getting to pick one. And then we're gonna head up to the main house. Head up to the main house and get to the final product that's gonna go into the pot and make that lovely hot chocolate we all love. So now I have the privilege of meeting the chocolate man himself. Not so chocolate in person, but this is the man that makes all the good chocolate. And this is the cocoa fruit, the one that I picked just now. And inside we have the nice white sweet I've been having this my entire time here. But let me introduce you to Mr. Dwayne Dove. He's been generous enough to have us visit his estate today. So welcome to Spice Island in the Pot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us. So I really just want to find out, first of all, where did cocoa come from?
Well, if you go back way back, it would be from the Aztecs, the Maya Indians. That's where it all began. And they actually used the dried cocoa beans as monetary, as money basically, for trade, for, you know, buying slaves and wives and all this kind of stuff. And they used to, yeah. I think back in those days, if my memory corrects me, you could buy a slave for 10 cocoa beans and a wife for 10. Right? No, that ratio has changed, right? But that's like 4 million years ago.
We can't buy wives anymore.
No.
We can't buy wives anymore.
That's 4 million years ago. So
yes. So I love hot chocolate. You know, the traditional one that you grate and you boil down with the spice and stuff like that. So tell me, how did that particular thing come about?
Well, I think basically, you know, when you talk about cocoa, you talk grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. The grade 1 and the grade 2 beans, those are the ones that will usually be sold, right? Using the mortar and pestle, and then you put your spices in your bay leaf, your allspice, your, you know, and stuff like that. You roll it and it hardens, you dry it on banana leaves, and then after a while you grater it, all right, and you make cocoa tea as we know it, which when I grew up, I mean, I drank cocoa tea with goat's milk, you know, your goat milk, and then you have, you know, a little pinch of salt and some brown sugar. That's how I grew up with cocoa tea.
Okay. Well, I guess it's you know, it's taken different tools because now we have the introduction of almond milk, soy milk, coconut condensed milk.
Yeah.
So, you know, as culinary has taken into that realm of things, I guess we have all that different variation of things. So I see right there we have the cocoa house, which I know the roof kind of slides back and that's how you dry it. Do you also use that process today?
Oh yes. We dry we ferment, or we sweat, as we say, the beans traditionally in small sweat boxes where we pack the beans in and then have banana leaves over. That process takes about a week. The white stuff that you were showing the viewers here, that melts off basically, and then we get the brown beans coming through. Right. After that, we dry them in the cocoa house for about a week. All right, and we would open the roof the first day for maybe just 2 hours, and then we close it, and the next day maybe 3 hours. And you know, as they say, whenever you have cocoa in the sun, you have to look for rain. So you always have somebody there.
Yeah.
You know.
Actually, how I know that expression is really when you're doing sneaky stuff, underneath stuff. That's the expression that I thought that meant. But I'm glad to know that it actually does apply to the cocoa house. So that's good to know. So tell me, Dwayne, being, you know, the ambassador of chocolate and being involved in this for so many years, what is your favorite chocolate tea memory?
My favorite cocoa tea, chocolate tea memory, because once you could smell that cocoa tea in the house, you would wake up. And she did such a nice cocoa tea with, as you said, the goat's milk, and you know, with the brown sugar, grater, and then, you know, with a pinch of salt. She always had a pinch of salt in it, all right, with some fried bake. Wonderful. Okay. That's my best cocoa tea memory.
That's a really wonderful memory. Really good. We had such a wonderful time today. I went down in the cocoa, I picked some cocoa, I ate some. Dwayne has been such a wonderful host today. Thank you so much for having us. I had a really good time.
You're welcome. And here I have one of our gift for you, which is one of our cocoa balls for you to try in cocoa tea. Do your own recipe, you know, and see what the results would be.
Okay, great. I'm definitely going to try that pinch of salt from your
do.
grandma. So thank you so much for that little tip. Really appreciate it. So now we're heading back to the kitchen. What an experience. Gosh, that was so much fun. So now I'm going to make my hot chocolate or cocoa tea, as we call it here in the Caribbean. So simple ingredients. We have some cinnamon sticks, we have some bay leaves, we have a little nutmeg, some condensed milk, some evaporated milk. We have that pinch of salt that Dwayne told us about. Can't forget the salt. And of course, the gift of chocolates. We have our chocolate ball coming straight from the Tobago cocoa estate. So first up, we have to grate the chocolate. Now, this cannot happen in a food processor, so you definitely have to grate this by hand, all right? So let's open this up. There we go. Smells so good, really nice and chocolatey. And it's a nice dark chocolate ball. And Dwayne explains to us how we get to this product, and it's so interesting how they manage to use all the different beans for all the different things, different grades, even the leaves. At one point, the cocoa leaves were used as kites, apparently, for, you know, young boys to have some playtime. So I'm grating this on the big side here of the grater. So it's not like it's going to have a size. It's still going to come down to the nice powdered form. So now when you buy your cocoa, you can grate all of it and keep it in a nice airtight container, so you don't have to grate every time you need to have some hot chocolate, right? All right. And of course, as you're coming down to the end of this, you want to mind your fingers. So I would not recommend you let the kids do this part, right? And even if you have a little chunk at the end, then you can just drop it in there, because when you boil the chocolate, it's going to melt. Perfect. There we go. Okay, so I've grated my chocolate here, and generally I can give you a single cup measure. It's 2 tablespoons of this chocolate to 1 cup of water. So that's generally, you know, if you're making just 1 cup, and then you can add and subtract accordingly. So first we have to get some water kind of spiced up and nice. So we're going to do, for this amount that I have here, I'm going to do 2 cinnamon sticks, 2 bay leaves, 1, 2. If they're small, you can do a little more. I'm going to put my nutmeg, just kind of break it and drop it in, because when we boil the chocolate, you're going to have to strain it off, so all of this will come out after. I'm going to put some water in here. So this is going to be about 1.5 cups to 2 cups, just to get it started. There we go. And I'm going to put my salt in, my pinch of salt. Perfect. So I'm going to let this boil for 5 minutes. Then I'm going to add my chocolate and add my milk. The condensed milk is the sweet part of the chocolate. So if you don't want it too sweet and you want to get away with it, come in and come in. And this is my sweetener and some additional cream to the goodness. So just a little bit of this. There we go. So what I like to do is I make my chocolate and I let it sit until maybe an hour or so before I actually serve it. So all the milk and the spices and stuff kind of come together. They kind of kusume, as they say. So I'm just going to stir this up and take my stove off. There we go. And this is done. Now I'm going to make my ham, get my ham all rubbed up and ready for the oven. So this is the epiphany of Christmas in the Caribbean, a good old pork ham. See this? 13 pounds of goodness. Let's get this started, because this is going to take about 8 hours to get done. So let's get started. Now, first of all, there's a net, see it here, that comes around the ham. Please make sure to cut this and make sure and get all of the net out. I had a friend that baked the ham with the net on. It wasn't a very nice experience for anybody. So make sure and get the net off of your ham. Make sure that your ham is completely defrosted. No kind of coldness, no ice in the middle, because you want to make sure and get all the meat off the bone in this. So first, I'm going to give it a nice little towel dry. So how to do this? You just have a nice clean towel and you just kind of press your ham. See, I already have some water coming out in my pan there. Press this here. I'm going to turn it over. There we go. And dry this up. Of course, when you're finished with this cloth, just wash it one time. Right? Don't use it for anything else. Don't do anything else at all. Right, I'm going to put this back here. So on this side, this is where the fat is. See all that nice thick fat on this side? So you're going to put a few cuts here, just like this. Help to get the flavors of the fat going in. That is important. If you have some anger issues, maybe you could work it out at the end of the year with a good ham. Right? So we make a few pokes here all over. That's that. Then we're going to turn this over here. Get to the meat side. Just give it a little dry again as much as we can. And then another poke right here all over. Okay, so now to this. Try and give it enough stabs, right? So now to this I'm going to insert a few cloves into where I made the cuts on the meaty side of things. Right? Just a few to get the clove flavor in. You want to make sure and get all the nice traditional flavors of ham, and clove is essential to that. Right, so this should be enough, and that is that. Now this is almost ready, so I am using a disposable tray because it's the holidays and I have other things to do. I don't want to have to wash up all of these ham dishes and things like that, but just to secure it, I'm going to use some foil and line this in a way that it gives me extra on the side, because we're going to wrap the whole thing, right? So we go across this way and across this way. This, and then long one straight across. Right, and just press it into the tin, just like that. So with the fat side down, you're going to put this into your tin. Right. And we're going to tightly wrap this and try to wrap it in an order so that when you're ready to open it, you know which way and you're not tearing up the foil. So we're going to go this side first and then here. Nice and tight, like just like this. Now if I got a present wrapped like this, I'd be really happy. So no need for the red ribbon. So what is happening here is that we're wrapping this up. We're going to put this in the oven that has been preheated to 400 degrees, and we're going to let this bake and steam up in there with that nice clove flavor for 2 hours. Then we're going to take it out. We're going to unwrap all that goodness again. We're going to make a nice little baste to put all over the ham. So let me get this into the oven. We're through with the first 2 hours with the ham wrapped in foil. So now we're going to get the topping for the ham to continue for the next 4 hours. So I have some crushed pineapple here. This is 1 can of crushed pineapple. I have some plain store-bought barbecue sauce. This is just about a cup here. I have some brown sugar, about a 3/4 cup of brown sugar. There we go. This is going to caramelize, make a nice little crust on top of the ham. I have a few more cloves that I want to add to this, more clove flavor. A little bit of regular instant coffee, about 2 tablespoons here. It's good. And we give this a nice stir. So the pineapple is going to give you a nice kind of natural sweet finish. The brown sugar is going to caramelize, give you a nice crust on the outside. More of that nice rich flavor from the clove. And this is going to be a really nice topping for our ham to finish bake. So this is done. Let's get the ham closer. So now we're going to unwrap Mr. Ham like this. There we go. This looks good already. So I'm just going to fold this nice and safe here, because now it's going to continue baking in the open. There we go. And see, I got a little brush for Christmas, so I could brush if I want to, right? So I'm just going to pour some on, starting from the middle. There we go. And we can just use the spoon and just kind of let it fall on the side, fall everywhere. Cooked pineapples are so good, especially when you bake them. It comes out really nice. And then you can scoop up some of this on the side and make a little sauce. You could continue eating it with the ham. Some of it is going to fall off, of course, so be prepared for that. And yeah, this is that. All done. See, it's running off already. So good. So now we've covered our ham with this topping, and we're going to pop this back in the oven, 400 degrees, the same, uncovered of course, so that it bakes up nice and gets a nice crust outside. 4 more hours to go. But in the meantime, you could be painting, you could be putting up your curtains, you could be painting the step downstairs because you forget and now you remember, so you want to pass a little paint on the steps. All these things can happen while the ham is in the oven. Long time people used to put the ham in the oven and go and sleep. I do not recommend that. So make sure you have some things going. Play some parang in the house. So I'm going to pop this back in the oven, and then of course bread. We need to get that bread started.
Spice Island in the Pot is brought to you by Stumpy's Emporium and the Penny Savers Supermarket.
Welcome back to Spice Island in the Pot. We're on to our second dish for today. It's the gourmet twist. We're making a saltfish and sweet potato casserole. Totally yummy. And this is the gourmet twist today, saltfish and dumpling that we made earlier today. So I have a whole bunch of ingredients in front of me. We're going to fit all of this into a beautiful casserole. What's a casserole, you might ask? It's like a baked pilau. It's one of those things where everything goes into one and you pop it into that magic box that is called the oven. So I'm going to start with my sweet potatoes. I've peeled and boiled these sweet potatoes already here. And I'm just going to use a fork and just mash them up and get them kind of smooth, and then we're going to add all the other ingredients to this. Now, I didn't put any salt when I boiled this because there's salt in the saltfish, and you know how I like to moderate the salt intake for things. So we're mashing and mashing, and this is a lot of work we had to do today. And we were fortunate, we got a really nice orange sweet potato to go with the yellow, so it's going to be a really nice color. You can do this very, very smooth, but I kind of like a rustic kind of feel to my casserole, so I don't mind the lumps at all. So, right, so it's mashed, and I'm simply gonna add a little garlic and butter. You know, this is like one of my key ingredients. There we go. And cheese is like one of those ingredients that I like to add to everything. So this part is optional. You don't have to add cheese if you don't want to. But the butter is going to make it nice and moist and smooth. So we have in this bowl about 3 pounds of sweet potato, and we have about a 1/4 cup of butter and about the same amount in garlic. Perfect. So I'm going to add cheese. Like I said, this is optional, and I don't want to put too much. No such thing as too much cheese. And we mix this. So we're going to mix this, set this aside, and I'm going to get all the vegetables ready for that saltfish. So just so you know what's going to happen, we're going to bake these. We're going to put the sweet potatoes down, put the saltfish on top, get it into the oven, and have a beautiful casserole at the end. So I'm going to put this aside, get my board. So it's bourgeois but with a twist. So all the ingredients that we know that comes in with bourgeois, normally tomatoes, onions, things like that. And then we're going to add some not so local ingredients, and that's where the twist comes in. We're going to have green peas, we're going to have corn, olives, hot pepper for a little kick on top. And everything goes in at once. Now, it's the same amount of saltfish I had before, 1 pound, but because we have extra veggies to add in, we're going to go less on some of the other things. So I'm using just these 2 tomatoes here, half of an onion. So green peppers, and see, when I shop for my ingredients, or I think about a recipe that I want to make, I always think about what colors the ingredients would be, to make sure that at the end of my dish I have color and, you know, it's picture worthy for Instagram and so on. You know, those are the likes I live for. So nicely diced sweet peppers. You know, don't be jealous if you can't go as fast as I can. I have been doing this for about 9 years, so I kind of built up the courage. Gonna have a pimento in there. And for this dish, I'm making everything just a little